Hey everybody, it's Corey with Natural Born Tillers. Thanks for joining us today on our most recent installment of Exploring Sustainable Food in Georgia. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, season extension. One of the most enjoyable things about gardening is pushing the boundaries. Ever since people have been growing food, they've pushed to have the earliest tomatoes or the latest season carrots, and that's called season extension. And it's happening all the time when you're farming. You're trying to fit a vegetable into a time where it's not usually fit. People are even doing that here in Georgia with lettuce in August. Not kidding. So we're going to try that. We're going to give it a shot. It's not easy, but we're going to show you some tips and tricks so you can enjoy some nice salad greens this time of year. The type of seeding we're doing today is called broadcasting. And just as it sounds, we're going to broadcast these seeds. We're going to spread them out just by kind of flinging them out in this bed. So we're not going to basically put in individual seeds, because these seeds, so this is arugula, these seeds are really, really small. And so what we want to do is prepare a bed. So we want to make sure we don't have any weeds, because once we broadcast into this row, we're not going to be able to weed it very much. So we want to have it as weed-free as possible. And then we want to have kind of, what I like to do is use rake widths. And so I'm going to use a kind of like a little furrow in between. So we have two rows here, and one row we're going to plant our arugula, and the other row we're going to plant our Asian green mixture. All right, so we're going to do some broadcasting. One of the things you do is don't pour too much seed in your hand, and then kind of be aware of how much you're going to throw. Just think about like putting salt on a dish. The higher you go, the wider the spread. So if I come down here, I want to get in just in this rake width. Okay, so we have our prepared soil, we've sprinkled some seeds on, and then we're going to lightly cover it. And I like to do this by hand. If you use a rake again, you'll move the seeds. So then we'll kind of cover it, tap it down firmly, and this works well if you have a little bit of a damp soil. And then that's really all you need to do. These seeds should be popping up within a week. I wanted to point out really quickly that we're using this site. We're always thinking about, especially with season extension, what is our orientation? So we're going to plant, we have these squash plants to the south. They're going to kind of throw some shade on our tender greens and help them with the midday heat. Okay, so it's a month later. We've planted our greens and we're here to show what happened. And unfortunately, it was an epic fail. You know, I'd like to show you some pristine vegetables and some beautiful greens. But the garden doesn't always provide that. In fact, I thought about shooting at a different location or even replanting. But one of the most instructive things about gardening is learning from your failures. So we have a lot to learn from this planting. So here's what went wrong. Problem number one, bugs. Bugs are always a problem in the late summer, and we failed to anticipate those. So we have different types of caterpillars, we have flea beetles, we have fungus gnats, things that really just destroy the quality of our leaf lettuce. To solve that problem, we could have covered it, and that would have allowed these leaves to grow without the insects getting in. It would also have provided some more shade. Problem two is we had this squash over here, which is all dead now, but it kind of overtook, which is why we only have a really thin band of arugula. So while we tried to use the spacing of these plants to provide some additional shade, it actually backfired on us and kind of grew over. Problem three is weeds. The weeds just kind of grew up and we neglected to keep them out. So we won't be able to cut this all smooth. We have to come in through here and pick out all of the weeds that have grown up. And so the upshot is make sure you're taking care and constantly watching over your late summer garden, especially if you're working on season extension. All right, that's enough of this vegetable graveyard. You know, we were going to leave you with some bug-eaten mustard, but fortunately we know a lot of farmers, some people that are real pros at this. So let's see how it's done. We are here at Jenny Jack's Sun Farm in Pine Mountain, Georgia with Jenny Jackson. Jenny, how are you doing?
Doing well.
This is a beautiful farm as always. Thanks for letting us come visit.
Sure thing.
You've been farming for quite a while. Why don't you tell everyone kind of how you got started and how long you've been growing on this land?
Yeah, so this is my family's property. They were using it for mostly recreation, like hobby cows and horses. So they were kind enough to let us start growing on it 16 years ago. And my husband Chris and I do this full-time together. We mostly produce for a 200-member CSA, but we also have an on-farm market here on Wednesday mornings.
And so is that what led you to grow lettuce in the middle of the summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
How long have you been doing that?
We've been doing that for at least 5-6 years, but trying to expand it every year.
What are some challenges with that? Is that a hard thing to do? Is it something you can just plant lettuce and grow it in August and no one does it?
No, it's very challenging.
Okay.
First of all, it's hard to get the lettuce to germinate in the heat. So we have to use special varieties that are called Batavian or Summer Crisp. So we're only using those varieties from the time we seed in April on through September.
Yeah.
So we use primarily, the varieties we use are Jericho, Sierra, and Muir.
Okay.
And getting those to germinate is a challenge. We have shade cloth on our greenhouse, but if it's really hot, it's even too hot in the greenhouse with the shade cloth.
Yeah.
So what we found this summer, which has been exceptionally hot, is we put the trays in our tomato room, which is where we store tomatoes post-harvest. It's an air-conditioned room that stays at about 65 degrees.
Okay.
And most of the varieties germinate well in there.
Okay. And so then once you get them germinated and up and going, is it all downhill from there? It's pretty easy, right?
Yeah, no, then it's a matter of keeping them cool enough in the field. So we put shade cloth over them after they've been transplanted.
Yeah.
Ideally, they have that shade cloth on for a few weeks and then we take it off.
Okay.
We do have a larger shade structure that we just leave on the whole time.
Okay. Yeah, because I noticed over there in the lettuce field, you have the babies covered with shade cloth, and then you have the other ones that are mature that aren't covered, which was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, so we just had switched that. So the mature ones have had the shade cloth until last week, and then we did a new planting, and it was really hot, so we switched the shade cloth onto the babies and left the new ones in the full sun.
Okay. And how much tinkering does this take? So the whole purpose of the video is to show like home gardeners who like, I want to eat lettuce in the summer, what it would take to do that. So what advice would you give to folks that are, maybe have small gardens and want to give it a shot?
Yeah, so summer lettuce, it's not like spring or fall lettuce where you can kind of pick on it or even get a few cuttings off of it for a few weeks. It goes very quickly. So even these summer varieties, if you do all the things, all the shade cloth, all the sprinklers, and everything that you can to keep it cool, they're still going to end up bolting. Okay. So we sow lettuce every week. Of course, for a home gardener, you might not need to do it that frequently, but we want to have lettuce ready every week for our customers.
Talking about season extension, what's something that you like to kind of push your luck on? What is something that you get excited about where it's like, I'm kind of cheating the clock here?
Well, the lettuce, that's been a big challenge, and we've enjoyed tinkering with that and growing more of it, getting better. You're talking about with other crops? Anything
else? I mean, you have all these wonderful high tunnels and greenhouses. It seems like you guys have really kind of dialed in your production systems.
Yeah. One thing that we found is not necessarily for season extension, but just the plastic covering really improves the crop quality. So even in the summer, we've got things like peppers under plastic because out in the field they were succumbing to bacterial spot disease. Yeah. We only grow tomatoes under plastic now. Of course, that's all summer. We're not trying to do that very early or very late. Okay. It's just for main season summer crop. Carrots, we had a really hard time getting carrots to grow in the field or to germinate well. So just having that plastic covering over them, I think maybe it helps keep them a little more moist while they're germinating. Yeah. So we only grow carrots and beets under plastic now. So for us, we had the idea when we got the hoop houses, or our first few hoop houses, we would use them for season extension, but now we're primarily just using them during the main season. Okay. Which for us, we market April through December. Okay.
So you could hypothetically grow things like lettuce all year round now because of what you have.
Yeah, we do. We do a little bit of winter growing. So we will plant a winter crop of some greens like lettuce, arugula, kales, chard, stuff like that. Yeah. Even though that stuff will grow in the field okay over the winter, we do plant at least one tunnel for winter production. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other advice you have for people starting? You have 16 years of of experience, if you're just getting started out, what do you tell people like that come to you at the market? Like, I want to start a garden.
I would say pay attention to the soil. So I think a common misconception with organic gardening is you just go out and you plant maybe into some compost, but veggies are very heavy feeders in general. So taking a soil sample, making sure that you can amend with what your soil is lacking. Of course, adding things like compost and mulch is really important to improve the structure, but really taking the time to prepare your soil and pay attention to what might be lacking, I think.
Sure, and you can put
super
too
important.
much of things, right? You can go overboard with certain nutrients that will never
Right.
go away.
Yes.
We've seen that in raised bed situations quite a bit, so
Yep.
I think it's really good advice. All right, I think that's good. Thank you so much for kind of offering your farm up and showing us how to grow lettuce in the middle of summer, because that's no small feat.
Yeah, we're enjoying it, and our customers love it, so
Awesome.
makes us happy.
Thanks, Jenny.
Yes.
Growing food is all about celebrating imperfection. The piles of perfect produce on the grocery store aisles are really an illusion, and the true part of growing food has to deal with a lot of death and disease, and we have to become comfortable with that. If we're going to be good at growing food, we have to accumulate failures, just like you accumulate compost. No one wins gardening. You really just survive to learn another season. When people start growing food, a lot of times, or they're afraid to grow food, they'll say, I don't have a green thumb, I kill everything I grow. And that's actually the best thing you can do. You're adding layers of compost. I call it the black thumb. You're not going to grow anything unless you have repeated failures and you figure out what went wrong before. So plant a seed, watch it grow. Sometimes it'll die, but when you can, share the harvest. Take care and eat well.